Let's imagine we've gone back in time to the early 20th century. We're traveling first class on the world's most magnificent luxury ocean liner. The date, April 14th, 1912. The ship, the pride of the White Star Line, the RMS Titanic. This room is an exact reproduction of the doomed ship's famous grand staircase. It's just one of many of the authentic recreations you'll see at this most unique Orlando location. Welcome aboard Titanic, the exhibition. Titanic, the exhibition, recreates the legendary Gilded Age elegance of that fate-filled voyage. Through a tapestry of dramatic storytelling, authentic exhibits, priceless artifacts, and historic treasures, guests are immersed in the timeless tragedy of the world's greatest maritime disaster.
What makes this exhibit so different from the rest, perhaps? Well, we're a mixture here of a museum and living history. What we have are 17 galleries, over 200 authentic artifacts to be viewed by the public. And here we've also recreated a sense of that history for the Titanic itself. We've rebuilt entire sections of Titanic as you tour through, like one of the world's only grand staircases that has been fully and permanently rebuilt life-size out of oak. What makes this exhibit work as far as being able to connect to our guests is sort of overwhelming of all the senses. Our tour guides here are not just simply tour guides, specifically on the person that we are to portray. People like myself here, I portray Thomas Andrews, Titanic's designer, who was out of Belfast, North Ireland. Now there is a whole wealth of information about that man's life that is to be conveyed during this tour. What brings our guests closer to this story, personally, is also the tickets. On our tickets, we actually have, of course, randomly printed names of all the passengers and crew that were on the original Titanic. Our guests have that ticket with one name selected, and that's the person that they will become or portray. They hold on to that ticket, and we share the stories of the passengers and crew as they go through with us on this emotional journey. Towards the very end, our guests will look up that name on their ticket and get, in a sense, that personal sense of what it must have been like when they find on the memorial wall what class they belonged to, what fate would have had in store for each of them if they had been there that night.
On that fateful night of April 14th, 1912, tragedy destroyed the Titanic, a ship considered the engineering marvel of its age. She was built with unparalleled size and luxury, nearly 900 feet long, 92 feet wide, and 104 feet tall. The Titanic stood higher above the water than most buildings of that time. Because of her double hull and a system of 16 watertight compartments, the Titanic was also said to be unsinkable. The maiden North Atlantic voyage included the elite of British and American society. On segregated lower decks, poor immigrants also journeyed, hoping to start a new life in America. Despite 6 telegraphed iceberg warnings on its first voyage from Southampton, England to New York City, the Titanic sideswiped an iceberg at 11:40 p.m. on April 14th. The type of steel used in the Titanic hull had become brittle in the frigid North Atlantic waters. It fractured easily in the collision, and the hull's riveted seams failed. Seawater flooded through the bow of the ship. About 2.5 hours later, the vessel broke in two and sank. With only enough lifeboats for about half of its passengers and crew, the Titanic became the world's worst maritime disaster.
In the age of Titanic, the law said 16 lifeboats were good enough. Most people don't realize that Thomas Andrews wanted no less than 64 lifeboats initially. He wanted watertight doors that would go all the way up throughout the interior of the ship. He wanted a double hull configuration, 2 sets of outer iron skin. Now, with all these things into play, this probably would have averted the course of history for the ship.
As history shows, Thomas Andrews was right. During the night of terror, tragedy, and heroism, only 705 lives were saved, and over 1,500 perished in the cold, icy waters of the North Atlantic. Today, Titanic, the exhibition, brings you a fascinating journey back in time, reliving the legendary history of a doomed ship, whose tragic legacy has become forever etched in our time. Take I-4 to exit 74 and turn right on International Drive.